Hey, I thought the motor museum cars were bigger.
So did I. Mick, you're the curator. Why did you choose this?
Oh, these are just for the kiddies to have a play around with. They don't like
Awesome.
touching it.
And you're the backyard man. How do I make this connect on the toe?
Just jam it in there. Actually, you've got any wire?
Here he is. Yeah. Nigel's here. We're just killing time at the National Motor Museum, Birdwood. It does say children must be supervised at all times. I go, you are supervisor as the curator.
Someone's got to supervise.
Yes, that's true. We're here for the Bush Mechanics exhibition. It's on right now, which is your brainchild. What have we got in store? What are you about to show us?
I'm about to show you some of the original cars from the series, mainly.
Fantastic.
And a few tricks and tips along the way.
All right. Now, am I dressed appropriately for Bush Mechanic?
Not quite, but neither am I.
Okay. We'll improvise. Yeah, Mark, you can be.
I can get dirty on your behalf.
Thank you. He's going to take one for the team tonight. Let's hop over. You ready to get dirty?
Sure.
Let's do it. Can we play again with these afterwards?
Absolutely.
You've already given me a little walkthrough. My mind is boggling. When I heard about tonight, I was curious. It's like when you go to the outback and you just don't understand the vastness of it until you're there. That's what I'm getting just from this. So it's an amazing privilege to be here tonight. This is one of the cars from the series?
Yeah, this is from the very last episode of the series. So we call it the Napa car, the water car.
Because it's all tied up, and we'll talk about this in the episode tonight, with the drawing of some rain, wasn't it?
Yeah, so basically it was painted with a water dreaming by Thomas Jungler Rice, and he sent the Bush mechanics to exchange it on the west coast for some pearl shells that were used to bring water. Rain.
We'll go into that, but you're holding some sort of iPad-type device in your hand. Is this the future of museum exhibitions you're about to show us?
Well, it's an iPad. It is an iPad. Hopefully not the full future of museums. Hopefully we'll still have the real object in place. But what this has is an augmented reality app that we've developed specifically for this car, which just gives you some extra in-depth information, and hopefully it's like a fun, engaging way to understand what's happening on the car.
So how does that work?
This car is a Ford Fairlane. It's a luxury version of a Ford Falcon. In the Ngapa Chukurpa, the Falcon represents Kirkalanji, the brown falcon.
And who's talking?
This
is the son of the artist, isn't it?
Yeah, this is, Donovan Jumpajimpa Rice.
Donovan Jumpajimpa Rice. My father, Jamala, painted
and he's
this
telling
car
the story that relates this car, the painting, to the summoning of rain, don't they?
That's correct. So I actually went and I visited Donovan and his elderly father Thomas, who painted the car, and they took me through it all, and we transformed their words into this sort of augmented reality app. Wow. And so you can just click through and see what else is happening on there.
Wallo or fire is at the heart of the design.
That's good. That just brings the museum to life.
It does, yeah. I mean, augmented reality is a real big thing in museums at the moment because it brings the objects to life, animates them.
At its core.
Now, Mick, you said somewhere in this exhibition is a bush travellers, bush mechanics toolkit. I can't see it.
That's exactly what my 86-year-old volunteer Bill said the other day. He said, I'm very disappointed there's no tools in there.
Yes.
And I said, no, Bill, look harder. This case is a toolkit.
Okay.
So
what's that?
That actually is the most common form of vegetation in the entire country. It's called spinifex. It's a prickly, dense grass that covers the entire central desert.
So how would you use that in the car?
Well, the most common trick is if you have a flat and you don't have anything to mend your tube with, chuck the tube out, stuff it with spinifex. So the tyre is, it'll pack the tyre so densely that you can comfortably roll on just using it.
Wow. So that gives you spin effects for your car. This?
That's just red sand. Anyone who's been to the central desert will be very familiar with that colour.
But how do you use it as a tool?
That can also be used to stuff things. It's a very good insulator. So say, for example, you have to pull something very hot out of the engine and cool it down. You can just stuff it in sand and that'll absorb a lot of the heat. But also, anthills are very commonly found in the central desert, as a lot of people will know. They can be quite high. If you find the right sized anthill and just put a little log as a ramp, you can actually drive your car up there and use it as a jack.
And there is a branch, or what is that?
That's mulga, so even though it's quite a small section, I had to personally hack that off using a saw. It's incredibly dense and hard.
Right.
It's basically steel, and that steel-like property that it has, mulga wood, which is a shrub or tree probably about yay high, makes it very good for spare parts. So there's an episode of Bush Mechanics where they replace an entire axle with a mulga stock. Yeah, I mean, it is really that hard. It does actually work.
And we've actually got claymations. Follow us, Nigel. We've got some claymations here of the original cars. Look at this.
Yeah, so these have been made specifically so that kids can still enjoy the bush mechanics up in their home community of Yuendamu. Because some of the original cast members have passed away and representations of them are not permitted in their home community, this was a pretty fun and engaging way to get the kids involved and interested in being bush mechanics again.
Wow, and we might even have a little snippet we can play
Yes,
of some
absolutely.
claymation. Because the guy who did the claymation, my girls have watched in Shaun the Sheep.
Yes, Jono, who did work on these, who did work on Shaun the Sheep, and you can tell there's a little element of that in these as well. They're really that.
What's going on here?
Well, it didn't start its life as a convertible. This was actually Francis Kelly, who's the co-director, main star, and basically one of the ideators of the show. This was his personal car, and in the very first episode of Bush Mechanics, the fellas are driving it out to Adelaide to play a rock concert, and they load all of their gear on the roof, and then halfway through, the roof caves in. But they still need to get to Adelaide, they still need to get there, and insurance there. So you can see them hacking the roof off with an axe, flipping it over and turning it into a trailer. So unfortunately we don't have the roof/trailer here, but I mean the car is just incredible. It really pulls you in, and pictures don't do it justice.
So, Nigel, I hope you'll come here to the National Motor Museum at Birdwood to look at the Bush Mechanics exhibition. It's awesome. If I had actually dressed for the night, I would see if I had permission to sit in there, but those seats look rather grubby. You're not going to tidy it up before people come and see this?
No, this is as found in the desert about 13, 14 years ago. It actually belongs to the National Museum of Australia, so exactly as preserved. And if you look up the front, you can still see Francis Kelly's signature in the dust.
Oh, fantastic. Talking of which, is there a dry cleaning allowance here? I think I've just got... Adelaide, 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 you Adelaide, Adelaide, Adelaide.